Hey, it's Paul from howtoplaybassdotcom. Today we're going to look at a very simple tutorial. It's the basic parts to get through Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed. Now this was originally played by Herbie Flowers and you've got this distinctive sound which is made by playing what's called a tenth, which is the root note, and the 10th note of the scale, playing them together. If you can just see, talk about it more in the lesson. I'm plucking it with the thumb and the first finger. Interesting bass performance on this song. It was done with two basses, with an acoustic bass and then overdubbed with an electric bass. So it's quite interesting. I'll talk more in the lesson about, if you want a really authentic performance, what you'll need to do in terms of instrumentation and arranging. What we're going to do in the lesson is we're going to look at kind of the basic section, this 10th sliding 10th section, which you can use for the intros. It's used for some of the kind of the bits in the verse where it goes, "Hey babe, take a walk on the wild side," and you can also use it underneath the section where the lyrics go do 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 do, etc., etc. Then I'll show you two ways to play through the verse. They're both very basic, but they're authentic because they're ways that Herbie Flowers, the original bass player, actually used, and you can build on those, or you can just stick with those kind of ways to get through the verse. Depends on the arrangement of your band, but it's quite a simple tutorial, and for beginners it's a good one. The hardest thing will be this plucking the 10th, which we'll talk through later in the lesson. Now, before we get into the intro and look at those tenths, how they're formed, what notes they're on the string and stuff, if you're not a subscriber to my free monthly easy, click the link underneath the video and head over to my website and go and subscribe. In return for subscribing, you get a sequence of song tutorials in video and PDF format over the next few days, delivered via email. Plus there's a monthly song tutorial, again video and PDF format. All this material is exclusive to people who've signed up. It's free, it just costs your email address. So go and do that, and then come back here and we're going to look at the intro. I'm going to start off with the tenths. The distinctive sound on Walk on the Wild Side comes from these tenths. You've got a 10th played on C, C major 10th, and an F major 10th, and they're slid into each other. Now, on the original recording, Herbie Flowers overdubbed this. He didn't play it like that. He played the basic, or the lower line, on his double bass, and then he played the upper line on his electric bass, because he was a doubler. He played both. He preferred to be a jazz player, but he was doing sessions and stuff for a living, so he did what he did. Now it's very difficult to replicate that. You could do it by tapping the root note and the 10th and then sliding the lower note down and the upper note up, which would go to there. Doesn't sound great in my opinion. I'm not a great fan of tapping. So for the terms of this tutorial, we're going to play the 10th there and slide up. So the 10th consists of playing C, 8th fret of the E string, and E, the major third, an octave up, or the 10th, which is the 9th fret of the G string. And to play them, to sound them twice, you can see I'm using the thumb and the first finger. And to fret them, there are several ways you can fret a major 10th. You can play second, fret the C with the second finger and the E with the fourth finger, or the way I'm doing it here, with the first and the fourth fingers. And then it slides up to F, which is F, 13th fret of the E string, and the major third, an octave up. The 10th is A at the 14th fret of the G string. And that's basically that pattern you can use for the intro and the section where the lyrics just go do 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 do. Now, as I said in the intro, this is going to be a basic tutorial, because if you listen to the original, you'll hear that Herbie Flowers does some variations to the main verse bass line. We'll cover a couple of these variations, or a couple of ways you can play through the verse, but also you can hear some higher stuff up on the G string with his electric bass, which almost serves as a counter melody to the song. So it's impossible to cover both of those lines. So if you're playing in a band where you're just getting the general sound, then what I'll show you will work. If you're playing in a band where it needs to be utterly authentic, then you'll need to decide which part to take. Probably this part. Take that part and get another instrument, maybe a keyboard or a guitar, to cover the other parts of the line. So let's move on and look at a basic way you can play through the verse. This is pretty much how the first verse is played. Okay, you just heard the first verse being played with the backing track. If you've learnt the riff already, it's pretty straightforward. There's not much else coming in. So it starts off just playing the single C without the 10th, 8th fret of the E string, sliding up to F, 13th fret of the E string, sliding back to C, the 8th fret of the E string, then going back to F, then going back to C, then to D. Could slide into that note. D's the 10th fret of the E string, then the F again, the 13th fret of the E string, back to D, and then for the bit where the lyric goes, "Hey babe, take a walk on the wild side," you're back to the 10ths, and then we've got kind of like a interlude between verse 1 and verse 2, again where you're playing the 10th line. And then when we get to verse 2, we're going to do some variations. So let's look at that. We'll look at that with the backing track, and then I'll talk through the notes. Okay, verse 2, just heard it being played. Simple variations, but quite effective, quite nice things that Herbie Flowers was doing. So the first, going from C to F, now we're playing, and we're anticipating that F. So we're playing C, G, E, F. So we're playing C, the 8th fret of the E string, G, E, 10th and 7th frets of the A string, and F at the 8th fret of the A string, and then those two notes are A and B, 5th and 7th frets of the E string, which sets up to play that pattern again. And then we've got C, D, F, D, and you could either play F at the 8th fret of the A string, or you could go 8, 10, 13 of the E string back to 10 as we did before, and then the section under "Hey babe, take a walk on the wild side," this time he's playing something like this. And then you back into that pattern. So what he's playing there, C, 8th fret of the E string, G, G flat, 10th and 9th frets of the A string, and then an 8th note pause, and then landing on F and playing that chromatic run to get back to C, which is A, A sharp, B, 5th, 6th and 7th frets of the E string. Then the second time, So same notes but slightly different rhythm. So C, G, G, B flat, sorry, G, G flat, F. This time there's no rest, and that F is like an anticipation. Held for 2 beats, and then A sharp, B. So I'll play those 4 bars again. Then you'll be back into that section actually, so I should have fretted that immediately. But that give you some basic ideas that you can play through. If you're playing in kind of a bar band and you've got a guitarist strumming away on the chords, that'll get you through the song. As I said earlier, if you want to play more authentically, then you're going to have to arrange the song more carefully. And if you're doing that, it will be a really good exercise to go and listen to what Herbie's playing, especially on the low part, throughout the song. He throws in some more jazzy kind of variations, does some nice stuff, but that will get you through the basics of the song. You'll sound reasonably authentic because they're authentic parts, and also from a beginner's perspective, the hardest thing about that will be sliding the tenths up from C to F, those major tenths. The rest of it's fairly straightforward, so it's quite an easy song to pick up, and a song I played many times back in the early 90s in a barroom band. One of those songs that people know, so it's a good one to have under your repertoire. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I'll catch you in the next tutorial.